Hey everybody, Steve Przebrowski here. Welcome to tip number 11 in the series 101 Tips to Ace Your Promotional Examination, based on the recently published fire engineering books and videos book of the same name that I'm very honored and fortunate to talk about. So let's get going. As a reminder, my website code3firetraining.com has lots of great free information on there, whether you want to get promoted or you just want to be the best that you can be regardless of your rank. I mean, that's about leadership. If you think about it, leadership is not about rank. Leadership transcends rank. You don't have to be a rank oriented leader such as a company officer, chief officer, to serve in a leadership role or position. So my website has lots of great free information to hopefully make you stay engaged and allow you to go down a lot of rabbit holes that'll hopefully allow you to find things that you might not have found elsewhere. So with that, again, as a reminder, my book is available on fireengineeringbooks.com. There's a 25% off code that you can use, 101 tips. And depending on when you're watching this, there also may be better or other discounts available. Sometimes they'll have free shipping. Sometimes they'll have higher discounts, sometimes lower discounts, but definitely take a look at the fireengineeringbooks.com website to see if there's lots of other great things that may be beneficial. But again, obviously, this is about my book since we're talking about that. So tip number 11, let's cut to the chase. Be the one that believes that the glass is half full, not half empty. What that means simply is be the positive one. You know, but we all know those people. We have friends, family members, acquaintances, people we work with, people we've worked with, people we'll work with in the future. They're just miserable no matter what the situation is. I'm not telling you how to run your life or live your life, but one of the best things I was ever taught by, my father, God rest his soul, is that, simply put, I mean, among many other things that he taught me, is you wake up in the morning, Steve, you can make a decision. You can make a decision to be positive or be negative. If you think the day is going to be miserable when you wake up, guess what? It's probably going to be miserable, and it's going to not just hurt yourself, but it's going to really hurt others, because that's what's going to emulate off you all day long. But that still sticks to me today is, I can wake up in the morning being positive or negative. Oh, woe is me. And before you think you're having challenges, trust me, we're all having challenges, some more than others. Obviously, we all know it's a very crazy time right now. But when you tie this into the leadership realm, leadership is about positivity. And for those that are saying, why are you talking about leadership, Steve? We're talking about promotional processes. Yeah, it's the same thing. As I've mentioned before, it's not just about getting promoted. It's preparing for the position that you aspire to, if not the ones above, so you can be the best that you can be on game day. But more importantly, when you get promoted and have to fill the seat or act in that position, which is very possible once you take the test, depending on how your department works, positivity goes a long way with leadership. You look at any famous leader in not just today's world, but in the past that are no longer with us. One of the traits that I bet they possessed was positivity. I mean, not in a pessimistic or Pollyanna way. I mean, they were truthful and honest and transparent when appropriate, but they were also trying to spin it in a positive way. Um, and I think that goes a long way in demonstrating your leadership ability. If you've seen the other episodes so far, you realize that this book contains a lot of words of wisdom. What do I call voices of experience from many of my friends, brother firefighters, mentors from around the country of all ranks. This voice of experience is from my buddy, Captain Jared Sergey from the Norfolk, Virginia Fire Rescue Department. Last year, he had his book published, No Nonsense Leadership. If you haven't checked this one out by Captain Sergey, check it out. It's got a lot of great information. It's a heck of an easy read. Heck, about 140 pages. You can, shit, if you're that motivated, inspired, whatever else, you can get it done quickly. But the point is, be the one that is positive, because that's going to go a long way. I mean, I remember years ago we were looking at a major financial crisis in my department. I mean, to the point that we may have had to lay off people, including myself, because I was junior in the totem pole. And I remember it was some hairy times. Do I test for other departments? Do I stay here, risk it? I mean, I love my department now, and back then too. I didn't want to risk having to be laid off, but I also didn't want to risk being laid off, you know, but I also didn't want to go somewhere and then not have something come to fruition. And man, I wish I would have stayed there. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but I remember our fire chief at the time, Doug Sporler. Doug was fire chief for about 20 years. He's been retired since I think 2000. Great guy, still is to this day. I mean, good, solid fire leader. And I remember as he's addressing the entire department about the the extent of the scope of the budget crunch. I mean, we're looking at potentially a huge cut to our budget. I mean, significant enough where people are going to have to be laid off. And I remember without missing a beat, he's up there, he's explaining the process, he's explaining the plans that him and the rest of the command staff at the time are thinking about, what they're looking at doing. You know, he's laying it out, plan A, plan B, you know, he's doing the best he can. And at the end of it, I remember he goes, you know what, but trust me, I've always said that people first, you know, our greatest asset is our personnel. And that's something that we've always valued in our department is our greatest asset is our personnel. Well, that was, I mean, he walked the walk, talked the talk. But anyway, he was up there and I remember him flat out saying, you know what, before I lay anybody off in the department, I'm going to sell the tires off the fire engines before we lay anybody off. And I remember sitting there. I mean, those people, oh yeah, yeah, chief, you the man. And I remember the firefighter next to me, a senior firefighter, very great guy and nice person. And he goes, did you hear that? The chief's going to sell the tires off the fire engines before he lays anybody off. That's leadership. And I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't make sense, because if he has to basically lose a chunk of his budget, like 25% of his budget, like yesterday, and he's told that pay up, basically we owed the state some money, was which what the crux of it was, and the state wanted their money. If he has to say, hey, sign a check right now, he was going to have to lay off a good chunk of people ASAP. And this firefighter, well, he'll sell the tires off the fire engine. I remember thinking, I didn't want to burst the guy's bubble, but I'm going, dude, I go, it doesn't make sense. The tires, I'm not sure what fire engine tires cost now, let alone back in 1997 at the time, 25 years ago. I know they're not cheap. Let's just call it $1,000 each tire. I mean, I don't know. Okay, he sells all the tires off the fire engines. Okay, yeah, that saves some money, but it's like a deck chair off the Titanic if you think about it in the big scheme. And how the heck are we going to get to calls if we don't have tires? This ain't the Flintstones. So, but long story short, he got lucky because we actually got a forgiveness bill signed by the assembly, the state assembly or the state senate. I can't remember what it was. So we basically didn't have to repay the money. We were basically made neutral. So tragedy averted. So it was an issue, but I'm thinking to myself, this could backfire on the chief. He was always a positive dude, and he still is every time I see him. But he was taking a chance because as a leader, he gave that, I mean, some might say a false sense of security. Some might say it was optimism. Some might say whatever, but he was being positive. And by him saying, I'll sell the fire engine tires before I lay off people, it put a lot of people at ease because no one wants to be stressed over their job. I totally get it. So it worked. But then I also look at what happens if we didn't get the forgiveness bill and he had to lay off people right away. What would that have done to his credibility? There would have been probably a lot of people, but chief, you promised, without really seeing the big picture and realizing he might have promised, but you know what? He's got to pay money back or otherwise he's going to be out of a job by his bosses. So long story short, the positivity worked. I mean, that's one example of positivity, but he was a really good, solid firefighter leader, you know, so it worked. I'm just using one example there, but I think positivity can go a long way. Just realize depending on what you promise, it can come back and bite you. So I guess maybe under promising and over delivering versus the other way around, over promising, under delivering. I don't know. You be the judge of that, but positivity can go a long way, if nothing else, for inspiring your crews, your troops, those that you're fortunate to lead and serve. Maybe, I mean, positivity provides a lot of inspiration. So also, besides the voice of experience throughout the book, I'm fortunate to have Paul Combs, who does the artwork for every month's Fire Engineering Magazine, FDIC conference in Indianapolis. I mean, he's got books, calendars. The dude is just a rock star when it comes to this artwork. You know, do check out Paul Combs. He was fortunate to allow me to use a number of his pieces of art masterpieces in the book to really tie up my key points that I wanted to make a point on. So, you know, his whole point was, you know, like in this one here, don't be the snake in the grass, you know, as we talk about morale, progress, teamwork, and more importantly, you see the helmet shield, bad attitude. Don't be the bad attitude one, especially when the times are tough. Be that positive one. Again, don't be naive, but be the positive one. I love this next picture here that I'm going to share. We look at being positive and everything else. This was taken on the sidelines of a football game a number of years ago, and it wasn't the team's best years. And they were going through a lot of head coaches, coaching staff. I mean, a lot of losing after a lot of winning. So that's even harder. If you're one of those, if you follow a team that hasn't done a lot of time in the playoffs, it's miserable. But it's the other way around. When you've been in the playoffs a lot and won the championships, and then obviously you go to those down years, oh man, it's tough to go. What do they say? It's always tough to go down once you've been on the top. But the point here is, if this is your leadership, here's the coach. Obviously, there's a play that's being made on the football field. I don't know. I honestly don't know what the play was, but they're not happy. You got the coach, and I'm not sure who the other position was. The coach is in the front, assistant coach, whatever you call it. They're miserable, whether it's a bad play by the team. Maybe the other team just was one step better. Maybe the coaches screwed up the decision. Who knows? But anyway, they're not happy with what's happened. But if you're the boot on the ground person at the firehouse, when the shit's hitting the fan, when things are going bad, and you look back at your leaders and you see your leaders doing this shit and basically giving up, what message does that send to you? Where's that inspiration and drive? Honestly, if it's the last play of the game, I get it. But let's say it's not the last play of the game. Maybe maybe you're down 50-0 and it's the fourth quarter. Well, guess what? You probably aren't going to come back from that one. Unless there's, stranger things have happened, but never say never. But again, as soon as you look at your leadership doing something like this, what message does that send to you? We're screwed. We're screwed. Back to my chief story. If my former chief had gotten up there and said, you know what, everybody? Yeah, we're looking at a major hit to our budget. You know what? We're screwed. I'm going to retire right now. If you can retire, I encourage you to do so, because this is a sinking friggin' ship right now. Let's get the hell off of it while we're still alive and we can collect our retirements and live a happy life. Go to other departments, guys. No, I don't know of any chief that would have said that. But again, imagine that chief saying that versus trying to be positive. That would have just lowered morale even worse, demotivated, de-inspired people. And it just would have, if there was any hope, it would have been shot to hell. So be positive. Only you can make the difference. So as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. My social media platform, my contact information, feel free to reach out if I can be a resource in any capacity. So, with that said, until the next episode, y'all take care, be safe, and we'll see you in the next one, everyone. Take care.